Everyone laughed when Nora Bell told the most dangerous man in northern Jersey not to wear his own poisoned suit. The laugh came from the tailor first, a thin silver sound that belonged beside crystal glasses and polished shoes. Then the house manager made a sharp breath through her nose, and one of the bodyguards looked away as if the poor laundry girl had embarrassed herself so badly that even watching felt rude. Matteo Varric did not laugh. He stood in the center of the dressing room with his black shirt buttoned to the throat, one arm already inside the jacket his tailor had brought for the council dinner. The room was all walnut mirrors, amber lamps, locked cufflink drawers, and men who knew how to stand still without looking still. Outside the tall windows, 3 black cars waited under the rain. Nora stood beside the cedar rack with a laundry basket against her hip and a white glove on her right hand. The glove had turned gray at the fingertip. "Don't put that on," she said. Matteo's hand stopped at his collar. His face remained still, but the air around him changed. Men like him did not need to raise their voices to make a room understand that a line had been crossed. "Do you know who you are stopping?" he asked. Nora's throat tightened, though her feet stayed planted on the woven carpet. "Yes," she said. "A man about to let his enemies dress him." The tailor's laugh died before it reached the wall. Mrs. Vale, the house manager, snapped forward in her black skirt suit. "Miss Bell, you were asked to deliver the shirts and leave." "I delivered the shirts," Nora said. "Then I smelled the jacket." The tailor lifted both hands, offended down to his bones. The jacket was steamed twice, brushed, and sealed in cedar. It came from Bellini's private room, not from some street bin. "That is why it smells wrong." The older man blinked. "Excuse me?" Nora set the laundry basket down with care. She did not want trembling hands to make her look like a fool, so she moved slowly, the way she did when handling silk that cost more than her monthly rent. "Cedar does not cover bitter almond," she said. "And it does not leave powder inside the collar seam." One of the guards shifted. Matteo noticed. His gaze did not leave Nora, but his voice cut sideways. "Luca." The guard froze. "Sir?" "Do not move closer to her." Luca obeyed instantly, and that obedience told Nora more about Matteo Varric than the expensive room did. The men around him feared his calm more than another man's anger. Mrs. Vale's mouth tightened. "Mr. Varric, this is unnecessary. She works the night laundry. She has no authority to inspect your clothing." "No," Nora said before she could stop herself. "I have responsibility." The room turned colder. The tailor stared at her as if a mop had started quoting law. "Responsibility? I cleaned the cuffs on 6 shirts last night because someone used the wrong starch. I repressed the dinner napkins because the fold line was off by half an inch. I know every chemical that belongs in this house's laundry, every soap you approve, every cedar oil your valet uses, and every smell that should not be near a man's skin." She lifted her gloved hand. "This should not be gray." Matteo looked at the glove for a long moment. Then he took his arm out of the jacket. The tailor made a sound. "Mr. Varric, please. That wool was cut in Naples. It has never been touched by anyone outside your approved circle." "It was touched by her," Matteo said. "Only because she interfered." Matteo finally turned his head. "And I am still breathing." No one answered. Nora felt every heartbeat in her wrists. She had imagined being fired from expensive houses many times. She had imagined being accused of stealing napkins, blamed for a missing cufflink, or sent out through the service entrance in rain because a rich woman disliked the smell of laundry soap on her sleeves. She had not imagined standing between a mafia boss and his own jacket while 12 men decided whether she was brave or insane. Matteo held out one hand. "Show me." Mrs. Vale's expression cracked. "Sir, with respect, we have security procedures. They missed this." He looked at Nora. "Did they?" Nora swallowed once. "Yes." "Then show me." The command would have sounded brutal from anyone else, but from him it carried something sharper than suspicion. It carried permission. Nora moved toward the dressing table. No one helped her, which was fine. People who never helped had a way of teaching poor girls how to carry whole rooms by themselves. She took a porcelain shaving bowl, poured warm water from the silver pitcher, and asked for the plain laundry soap from her basket. The tailor scoffed. This is absurd. So is poisoning a man through $1,000 collar, Nora said. The guard named Luca stared at her now, not with contempt, but with the first ugly shape of alarm. Nora dipped a clean square of white cotton into the water, touched it with soap, then wiped the inside of the jacket collar exactly where her glove had brushed. She did not rub hard. A dangerous residue could be trapped in threads and released by heat. Too much pressure would smear the evidence and make it look like dirt. The cotton came away with a faint gray streak. The room stopped breathing. Nora held the cloth up against the light. That is not ash, she said. It is too fine. Matteo's face did not change, but one muscle moved in his jaw. Continue. She turned to the dressing table, where a tray of cufflinks sat beside a silver collar pin. She pointed to it. May I? The tailor seemed ready to faint from the insult, but Matteo nodded. Nora picked up the collar pin, dipped its tip into the damp gray mark, and waited. For 3 seconds nothing happened. For 4 seconds Mrs. Vale looked as if she might recover the room. At 5 seconds, the silver darkened at the tip. The house manager made a small, involuntary sound. Nora set the pin down. It reacts with silver, she said. It was hidden in the collar seam, probably where heat and sweat would wake it. If he wore the jacket through dinner, it would touch his neck for hours. The tailor's face went pale beneath his tan. No. No, I inspected every seam. You inspected the outside, Nora said. Who opened the lining? He did not answer. Matteo lifted the jacket from the cedar hanger with 2 fingers and handed it to Luca. Bag it. Not plastic. Cotton. Luca glanced at Nora. Cotton, she confirmed. Plastic sweats. The guard did not argue. That was the first time anyone in the Varric house took an order from Nora Bell. It was not the last. The dressing room emptied halfway in under a minute. Men left to lock doors, call names, and check routes. Mrs. Vale remained because pride had nailed her to the carpet. The tailor stayed because fear did the same. Matteo stayed because Nora had not told him he could move. That realization embarrassed her so sharply that heat reached her cheeks. You can step back now, she said. His eyes narrowed a fraction. Can I? The words should have sounded mocking. They did not. They sounded like a man examining the strange new fact that someone had just saved his life by speaking to him as if he were made of skin instead of power. Yes, Nora said. Unless your shirt touched the collar. Matteo looked down at his black shirt. The collar had brushed the jacket when he put one arm inside. Nora closed her eyes for half a beat. Take off the shirt too. Mrs. Vale inhaled as if Nora had thrown a vase. The tailor whispered, My God. Matteo stood perfectly still. Nora realized what she had said only after the whole room had reacted to it. I mean, she added, with as much dignity as she could gather, someone needs to seal it with the jacket. Not because of modesty. Because of contact. I understood you. Good. Did you understand yourself? His voice was low, and for a dangerous second the room held something that was not fear. It was not softness either. It was attention, focused entirely on her. Nora forced herself not to look away. I understand fabric, she said. And I understand men who think pride is thicker than skin. Luca coughed once into his fist. Matteo's mouth did not smile, but something in his eyes changed. He unbuttoned his shirt himself. No valet stepped in. No guard looked directly at him. Nora turned toward the dressing table, giving him privacy because she had been poor long enough to know that dignity was sometimes the only thing a person owned. Miss Bell. She looked back only when he spoke. He held the shirt at arm's length. His chest was bare above the waist, marked by old scars she did not count because they were not hers to count. One scar ran just under his collarbone, pale and raised, as if something had once tried to write a warning there. Nora took the shirt by the cuffs, careful not to touch him. Matteo noticed that too. "You are not afraid to order me," he said. "But you are careful not to touch me. Those are different things." "Explain." She folded the shirt into a cotton cloth. "Ordering you was necessary. Touching you without permission is not." The tailor looked at her as if she had just spoken a language he had never learned. Matteo said nothing for a long moment. Then he turned to Mrs. Vale. "Bring Miss Bell whatever she requests." Mrs. Vale's face hardened. "Of course. And if anyone laughs at her again," Matteo added, still looking at Nora, "make sure I hear it." The house manager lowered her eyes. Nora did not feel victorious. Victory belonged to people who could afford consequences. What she felt was the strange, breathless terror of having been right in a house where being right might be more dangerous than being wrong. Matteo reached for a clean robe from the back of a chair. Nora stopped him with one raised hand. The entire room froze again. "Not that one," she said. He looked at the robe. "Why?" "Same cedar." "You smelled that from here?" "I smelled it when I came in." Matteo stared at her. For the first time that morning, he looked less like a man interrupted and more like a man who had almost been killed in his own mirror. "Then where do I stand?" he asked. Nora blinked. No one had asked her that in this house before. They asked where things were, when shirts would be ready, why a stain had not lifted, whether a hem could be fixed before 7. They did not ask her where they should stand. She pointed to the far side of the room, away from the cedar rack and the sealed jacket. There. Matteo Varric, who controlled ports, unions, kitchens, judges, and men with colder eyes than winter streets, moved exactly where the laundry girl told him to stand. By noon, the Varric mansion had lost its polished silence. Phones vibrated against mahogany desks while men spoke in clipped phrases behind closed doors. A second tailor waited in the East Hall as Nora inspected every item meant to touch Matteo's skin that night. The first fresh shirt was clean. The second was clean. On the third, she found a broken black thread hidden inside the left cuff, so small that the tailor missed it twice even after she pointed. "This is not tailoring," she said. "A repair joins two broken pieces. This hides between them." Matteo stood near the window in a plain white undershirt from the emergency wardrobe, black trousers, and no jacket. Without the formal suit, he looked less dressed and more dangerous. "You are certain," he said. "Yes." "How?" Nora held up the cuff. "The knot is wrong. People who sew for fabric hide knots flat. People who sew for speed knot tight, ugly, and hard enough not to slip in water." Luca frowned. "Someone from laundry?" Mrs. Vale crossed her arms. "Impossible. Every worker is checked." Nora looked at her. "Checked for weapons, yes. Checked for thread?" No one answered. Matteo's gaze moved from the cuff to Mrs. Vale. "List every person who touched my wardrobe in the last month. Now." The house manager left, and the second tailor cleared his throat. "Mr. Varric, if the clothing was compromised, the room may be compromised too. The table linens, chairs, napkins, Miss Bell will check them." Every face turned to Nora. She wished, briefly and fiercely, that she had worn better shoes. "I cannot check an entire council room alone before 7, she said. "What do you need?" It was the second time he asked like that, not what was allowed, but what she needed. "For clean cotton cloths, 2 bowls of warm water, plain soap, silver from the pantry, access to every linen and chair, and nobody touches anything after I clear it." Luca nodded before Matteo spoke. "You can watch," Matteo told the tailor. "She supervises." That sentence traveled through the room like a thrown match. Nora had been invisible for so long that visibility felt like standing under a bright lamp with nowhere to hide, but beneath the fear was something steadier. She knew her work. If they wanted to survive a house dressed for murder, they would listen. The council room had been prepared like a stage for powerful men, a long black table, 12 folded napkins, charcoal curtains, silver trays, and a silence polished as hard as the floor. Nora hated perfect rooms because everyone was afraid to disturb them, and fear was how small things stayed hidden. She checked Matteo's chair, his napkin, the glass cloth, the curtains, and the table runner. Luca stood 2 steps behind her, quiet enough to be useful. When he asked why laundry could find what security missed, she kept working while she answered. People notice chefs and drivers, she said. They notice doctors, tailors, and women in evening dresses. They do not notice the person carrying sheets. I meant YU. Hospital laundry. Night shift. I learned residue, medicine, ointments, fever sweat, and bleach mistakes. Cloth keeps secrets longer than people do. At 2 in the afternoon, Mrs. Vale returned with the wardrobe access list and tried to hand it to Matteo. He did not take it. Miss Bell, he said. The house manager's fingers tightened, but she passed the page to Nora. The list named 3 valets, 2 tailors, a private presser from Bellini's, Mrs. Vale, and 4 laundry workers from the night rotation. Nora tapped one line. Nathaniel Caro signed for the jacket at 9:40, she said. But I saw the cedar garment bags arrive at 8:15. Mrs. Vale's eyes sharpened. Perhaps you misread the time. Nora looked at Matteo. Do your service hall clocks run slow? No. Then someone had the jackets for 1 hour and 25 minutes before the private presser signed for them. She turned the poisoned cuff toward the light. And the false thread carries starch dust from Route 17. Kitchen linens are 12. Guest beds are 9. Formal shirts and council napkins are 17 this week. Someone moved Bellini's work through our route and used the wrong lavender finish trying to hide it. For the first time, Matteo looked at the suit as if it were a message instead of a weapon. Who controls Route 17? He asked. Mrs. Vale went still. That was enough. I assign routes, she said. Then name everyone who handled 17 last night. I would need the log. Nora held up the paper. This is the log. The silence that followed belonged less to a house than to a room where poor people had to prove what rich people already knew. Mrs. Vale lifted her chin. Panic makes servants ambitious. The insult landed where it was meant to land, but Matteo spoke before Nora did. Do not call her a servant to make yourself taller. The house manager's composure cracked. She has been here 3 months. And in 3 months, Matteo said, she noticed what you missed in 11 years. Nora asked for the Route 17 tie bin. Luca brought it, and she spread the blue thread laundry ties across the sideboard, sorting by touch, cut, color, and smell. Near the bottom, she found 3 ties that were too dark, cut with shears instead of torn by the dispenser, and marked with the same faint lavender finish as the cuff thread. These came from Bellini's, she said. Unless Bellini's started using your laundry ties, someone from this house gave them out. Mrs. Vale's face changed, not into guilt, but into fury. You little fool, she said softly. Luca moved, but Nora did not step back. Matteo's voice went almost gentle. Careful, Evelyn. Careful? Mrs. Vale laughed once. You are letting a laundry girl dismantle your house because she waved a dirty glove. A glove that kept me alive. For now. The room chilled. Nora saw the moment Matteo understood that this was not a mistake, not a subcontractor error, not careless tailoring. It was betrayal wearing household keys. Luca took Mrs. Vale by the arm. She looked at Nora with refined hatred. He will use you, she said. They always use women like you until the room is clean again. The words hurt because Nora had heard versions of them all her life. Matteo looked at her, and for the first time that day, something like apology moved behind his eyes. Nora turned away first. The council room is not clear, she said. Her voice held. She was proud of that. Then clear it, Matteo said. And no one speaks to you unless you ask them to. The laundry room lived beneath the east wing, past the wine cellar and the old stone corridor where the mansion stopped pretending it had been built for comfort. By late afternoon, Nora had moved the investigation there because cloth told more truth near the machines that had touched it. Steam softened the air. Industrial washers hummed against the wall. The long folding tables were scarred by years of hot irons, spilled bluing, and women pressing other people's lives flat before dawn. Matteo entered without guards. Nora noticed, though she pretended not to. She was checking the poisoned collar under a bright work lamp, her white gloves changed for a fresh pair, the stained pair sealed in cotton beside the darkened silver pin. A neat row of evidence sat on the table, the collar cloth, the cuff thread, the 3 false blue ties, and the Route 17 log. You should not be down here alone, she said. I am not alone. You know what I mean. Yes. He stopped at the edge of the table, not crossing into her workspace. That mattered. Men like Matteo were used to entering rooms as if all space belonged to them, but he stood with his hands at his sides and waited for her to decide whether his presence was allowed. Nora kept her eyes on the collar. I am not finished. I did not come to hurry you. Then why did you come? He was quiet long enough that the washers filled the silence. Because Mrs. Vale was right about one thing. Nora's hand paused. Matteo's reflection showed in the steel side of the washer, blurred and dark. Men like me use people, he said. Sometimes even when we believe we are protecting them. She looked at him then. His face was unreadable, but his right hand rested near his throat, just below the scar she had seen when he removed his shirt. It was an unconscious gesture. Those were the only gestures she trusted. Is that an apology? She asked. It is a warning. I have had enough warnings from rich houses. Then it is an apology. Nora was not prepared for that. Powerful men sometimes thanked poor women in public because it made them look gracious. They rarely apologized in basement laundry rooms, with no audience and no advantage. She turned back to the table before her face could reveal too much. Accepted, she said. If you mean it tomorrow. Matteo stepped closer, then stopped again when her shoulders stiffened. I do not let people near my collar, he said. Nora made herself continue sorting threads. I noticed. My father died while a man fixed his tie. The laundry room seemed to pull the sound into its stone walls. Nora lowered the thread. Matteo's voice remained calm, which somehow made it worse. Everyone in the room had been checked. Every door was guarded. The man had served him for 9 years. He put his hands at my father's throat, smiled, and the house changed before I understood why. Nora did not ask how old he had been. Some numbers were not needed. That is why you button your shirts yourself, she said. Yes. And why nobody touches your collar. Yes. That is why they used it. His eyes met hers. She did not soften the truth because softness in the wrong place could get a man killed. Your guards can stop strangers, she said. Your money can buy better doors. Your rules can make people afraid to come close. But this house knew exactly where you would refuse help. He absorbed that like a blow he had been expecting for years. They used my fear. They used your loneliness. The word landed between them with more danger than poison. Nora regretted it the moment she said it, though not because it was untrue. Truth could still be indecent when thrown too hard. Matteo did not punish her for it. He only looked at the table, where the poisoned collar lay cut open beneath the work lamp. What do I do? He asked. Nora breathed in the scent of soap, steam, wool, and rainwater trapped in stone. This was not the question a man like him was supposed to ask a woman like her. He was supposed to command, decide, threaten, purchase. He was not supposed to stand beside her under a laundry lamp and ask how to survive his own armor. You stop proving you are untouchable, she said. He looked back at her. She lifted one gloved hand, slowly enough that he could refuse. And you let me see where they touched you. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Matteo unbuttoned the top of his plain white shirt. It was not intimate in the way gossip would have made it. It was worse and better than that. It was trust stripped of decoration. He tilted his head slightly, exposing the line of his throat and the old scar near his collarbone, and Nora stepped close enough to examine the skin where the poisoned shirt might have brushed him. Her glove touched just below the scar. He did not flinch. Nora knew he wanted to. She felt the restraint in the tightness of his breath, in the way his hands curled once and released. He gave her the stillness not because it was easy, but because he had decided she deserved it. "Your skin is clear," she said. His voice was low. "Are you sure?" "Yes." "Then why are you still looking?" "Because the scar was old and ugly and lonely. Because someone had taught this man that no touch near his throat could be safe. Because Nora had spent half her life cleaning the evidence people left behind and the other half being told not to mention what she saw." She stepped back. "Because I do not like what they knew about you." Matteo buttoned his shirt slowly. "Neither do I." He reached for the stained glove on the table, then stopped before touching it. "May I?" Nora nodded. He picked up the cotton packet carefully, as if the cheap white glove were a relic instead of laundry supply bought in bulk. "This saved my life." "My nose saved your life." That almost made him smile. "Then I owe your nose a debt. It accepts steady wages and reasonable hours." This time, his mouth did move, not enough to become a smile anyone upstairs would recognize, but enough that Nora saw the man beneath the office of him. It unsettled her more than the danger had. The washers thumped through a rinse cycle. Matteo set the glove down. "I have a council in 3 hours. You should cancel it." "I cannot." "That sounds like pride." "It is strategy." Convenient how often those were the same suit. His eyes warmed with something like reluctant amusement. "If I cancel, whoever backed Mrs. Vale knows we have the whole thread. If I attend, they may still reach." "You want them to reach?" "Yes." Nora looked at the evidence table. "Then you need a suit they believe is poisoned and a shirt I know is clean. Can you prepare that?" "Yes." "Will you?" There it was again. Not an order. A choice. Nora had been given so few choices in houses like this that she distrusted the shape of one. "If I do," she said, "you do not hide me in the hallway after. You do not let those men call me lucky. You do not say your security found it." Matteo's expression sharpened, but not with anger. "What do I say?" "The truth. That my laundry girl saved me? That the woman who works in your laundry found what everyone else missed." He held her gaze. "Done. And if I tell you to change your collar in front of the whole council? Then I change my collar." Nora should have felt satisfied. Instead, her heart kicked once, hard and foolish, because the way he said it made obedience sound less like defeat than devotion to her judgment. "Good," she said, too quickly. Matteo looked at her as if he heard every unsaid thing she tried to fold away. "Miss Bell." "Yes?" "Nora." Her name sounded different in his mouth. Not softer. More exact. "Yes?" "After tonight, people will say you belong to me." She lifted her chin. "I do not belong to anyone." "I know." "Do you?" "I am learning." That answer was better than a perfect one. Perfect answers were usually lies polished for servants. Nora returned to the table and picked up the clean shirt. "Then stand still," she said. Matteo did. The council began at 7 with rain on the windows and 12 men pretending not to notice that Matteo Varric wore a plain white shirt beneath an older black jacket. The jacket did not fit as sharply as the poisoned one. Its shoulders were a season out of date, and the left cuff showed the faintest repair where Nora had replaced a button with thread from her own kit. To anyone else, it looked like a concession to emergency. To Matteo, it was armor made by the only hands he trusted in the house. Nora stood at the sideboard with the coffee service. No one had wanted her there. She knew because no one had been subtle about it. Luca stood near the door. 2 more guards watched the windows. Mrs. Vale had been removed to a secured office, though not yet handed to anyone outside the family because Matteo wanted the whole net, not just the first fish caught in it. The council members arrived in dark coats, expensive shoes, and expressions that measured everything. Some looked at Matteo's plain shirt. Some looked at Nora. One older man with a narrow face and a gold watch looked at both, then smiled too gently. That was the man Nora remembered from the service hall. He had passed the cedar bags at 8:30 the night before, one hand tucked beneath his coat, walking as if the corridor belonged to him. She had not known his name then. Now Luca whispered it without moving his lips. Rinaldi. Matteo heard. He did not react. Dinner was not served, despite the table setting. No one had appetite for it, though several men pretended annoyance because fear often wore irritation in wealthy rooms. Matteo sat at the head of the table. Nora noticed the tiny pause before he rested his left wrist near the cuff. He remembered. He was listening even when he looked like stone. Rinaldi leaned back in his chair. I expected ceremony tonight, Matteo. Not a laundry audit. A few men smiled. Matteo turned his water glass once. Ceremony nearly dressed me for burial. The smiles vanished. Rinaldi raised an eyebrow. Dramatic. Accurate. If there was a threat, why are we gathered? Because threats teach more when they think they failed quietly. Nora poured coffee with steady hands. She had practiced the angle twice so the pot would not tremble. White glove on the handle, black coffee, silver service, men watching without wanting to admit they watched. Rinaldi's eyes moved to her. And this is our new head of security? The table gave the low chuckle it had been waiting to give. Nora set the coffee pot down. Matteo did not speak. That surprised her until she understood. He was giving her the room, not rescuing her from it. The distinction mattered. Nora stepped away from the sideboard and removed from her apron pocket the sealed cotton packet containing the stained glove. No, she said. I am the person who knows what your security did not wash out. Rinaldi's amusement thinned. Careful, girl. I am careful. That is why Mr. Varric is alive. Someone inhaled at the directness of it. Matteo's gaze rested on Nora, steady and dark. He said nothing, but the whole room understood that his silence was not abandonment. It was permission with teeth. Nora placed the cotton packet on the table. This glove touched the inside of Mr. Varric's jacket collar this morning. The residue darkened silver within seconds. Rinaldi shrugged. A stain. She placed the collar pin beside it. This stain was hidden where heat and sweat would activate it. You are a chemist now? No. I am a laundry worker. I know what belongs in cloth. An older councilman at the far end leaned forward. What else did you find? Nora placed the cuff thread on the table. A false repair in his left cuff. Then the 3 false blue ties. Laundry route ties from Bellini's private room, cut to mimic this house's Route 17. Rinaldi's fingers moved once against his gold watch. Nora saw it. So did Matteo. She turned to Luca. May I have the service hall ledger? Luca brought it to her. Rinaldi laughed. This is theater. No, Nora said. Theater has better lighting. One of the younger men made a startled sound that might have been a laugh before he remembered where he was. Nora opened the ledger. The cedar garment bags arrived at 8:15. Nathaniel Caro signed for them at 9:40. Between those times, the service hall was not empty. Mrs. Vale crossed it twice. Bellini's presser did not arrive until later. One council guest passed through at 8:31, although council guests do not use service halls. Rinaldi's face hardened. Matteo spoke then, very softly. Do they, Carlo? Rinaldi spread his hands. I visited the kitchen. Your cook makes better espresso than this meeting. The kitchen is west, Nora said. The garment room is east. Perhaps I lost my way. You did not. You corrected the housemaid when she called you sir instead of Mr. Rinaldi. People who lose their way do not stop to manage titles. The room went still. Rinaldi's eyes turned flat. You remember that? I remember tone. Do you remember faces too? When they make servants look down, yes. Matteo's hand closed around the arm of his chair, not in anger at her, but because every word drew a clearer line to Rinaldi. Rinaldi leaned forward. Matteo, are you truly allowing a laundry girl to accuse a seated member of this council? Matteo looked at Nora. Are you accusing him? The room waited. Nora's stomach tightened. Accusations were expensive. Evidence was cheaper and stronger. No, she said. I am saying the person who passed through the service hall at 8:31 wore a cuff brushed with lavender starch. The same finish found on the false thread. Mr. Rinaldi is wearing that finish now. Rinaldi went very still. Nora turned to Luca. White cloth, please. Luca brought one. No one spoke as Nora approached Rinaldi. She stopped 2 feet away because she was not foolish, and because Matteo had risen from his chair without a sound. Rinaldi smiled. You plan to wipe my sleeve? No, Nora said. I plan to ask. Ask? Yes. Consent matters, even in rooms where men forget it. The statement landed oddly in the council room, but Matteo understood. She felt his attention like warmth at her back. Rinaldi looked at Matteo. This is humiliating. Then refuse, Matteo said. Rinaldi could not. If he refused a laundry girl's cloth, every man at the table would smell guilt even without Nora's nose. He extended his wrist. Nora wiped the underside of his cuff once. The white cloth lifted faint lavender gray. Not enough for law, maybe. Enough for the room. The older councilman swore. Rinaldi moved fast, but Matteo had already moved faster. He did not strike him. He did not need to. One hand pinned Rinaldi's wrist to the table with such controlled force that every glass trembled, and Luca was there a heartbeat later. Nora stepped back with the cloth held high. Her heart hammered, but her voice remained clear. That is the same residue family. Rinaldi looked at Matteo with hatred stripped bare. You think she saved you? She made you weak in front of everyone. Matteo's face was colder than the rain on the windows. No, he said. She revealed who mistook trust for weakness. Rinaldi laughed once, breathless under Luca's grip. You let a laundry girl touch your throat. Matteo looked at Nora. In front of the whole council, in front of the men who had measured his fear and tried to kill him through it, he reached up and loosened his collar. Yes, he said. And I lived. Something inside Nora went quiet. Not because the danger was over. It was not. Rinaldi was dragged from the room by men who suddenly found many reasons to obey Matteo quickly. Mrs. Vale would talk, or she would not, but the house had already turned against the secrecy she had protected. The quiet inside Nora came from a different place. She had spent years being allowed near powerful people's stains but not their decisions. She had cleaned the aftermath of rooms she was never invited to enter. Now the most dangerous man in the room had not only believed her. He had made belief public. When the doors closed behind Rinaldi, Matteo turned to the council. From this moment, he said, no garment, linen, curtain, tablecloth, car blanket, or ceremonial cloth touches any Varric meeting unless Nora Bell clears it. The younger man who had almost laughed earlier blinked. Mr. Varric, that is a great deal of authority for the woman who kept me alive, Matteo said. Finish the sentence carefully. The man did not. Nora felt heat rise behind her eyes, but she did not cry. Tears in council rooms were too easy for people to misunderstand. Instead she folded the stained cloth once and placed it beside the glove. I will need a written protocol, she said. Every head turned. Matteo's mouth almost moved again. You will have one. And staff who answer to the protocol, not to old grudges. Done. And nobody uses scented starch near evidence. Luca looked down. This time he did laugh, quietly. Matteo looked at Nora as if the sound had surprised him less than the fact that he liked hearing it near her. Anything else? He asked. Nora thought of Mrs. Vale's insult. He will use you. They always use women like you until the room is clean again. She looked at the men around the table, then back at Matteo. Yes, she said. I am not your lucky charm. The council room became painfully silent. Matteo did not look offended. He looked attentive. No, he said. You are not. If you want my work, you respect the work. If you want my judgment, you listen before someone nearly dies. If you want me in this house, I enter through the front door when business requires it. Luca looked at the floor, but his mouth twitched. The older councilman watched Nora with new interest, not kind, not unkind, simply recalculating the world. Matteo stepped toward her. Not too close. Never too close without asking now. Nora Bell, he said, and the way he used her full name made it sound less like a label and more like a title. From tonight forward, you are Chief Textile Security for the Varric House and all Varric meetings. Your pay triples. Your authority is written. Your word stops a room. Nora's breath caught despite her best effort. That sounds made up. Most real authority was made up by men with less reason. That was unfortunately true. I want it in writing. You will have it before midnight. And I choose my staff. Yes. And my hours are humane. For the first time in front of the council, Matteo Varric smiled. It was small, dangerous, and entirely directed at her. Define humane. No one wakes me for napkin folds. Done. No one criticizes my shoes unless they are offering better ones. Luca made a strangled sound. Matteo's eyes moved once to her scuffed black flats, then back to her face. Also done. Nora should have stopped there. But something in the room had shifted, and she knew if she did not name it now, she would spend years working around the silence. And I am not kept in a pretty room because I saved you once. Matteo's expression changed. The council disappeared for a second. The rain, the table, the men, the stained glove, all of it blurred around the line between them. Good, he said. I was not offering a room. I was offering keys. No one laughed. No one dared. The written protocol arrived at 11:47 p.m. It was printed on thick cream paper, signed by Matteo Varric, witnessed by Luca, and delivered to the laundry room because Nora had refused to wait in the formal study like a portrait waiting to be purchased. She read every line while Matteo stood on the other side of the folding table in a clean black shirt, the old repaired jacket over one arm. The poison suit was sealed in cotton and locked in a steel evidence cabinet Nora had demanded from storage. Rinaldi was gone from the house. Mrs. Vale had given up 2 more names before dinner ended, and Nathaniel Caro, the Bellini's presser, had been taken at the service gate with false Route 17 ties in his coat pocket. There would be more consequences. One betrayal usually opened into 5 in a house like this. But some stains lifted only after the first hard scrub. This says I have authority over ceremonial cloth, Nora said. Yes. And vehicle interiors. You said car blankets. I did. I listened. Nora looked up from the paper. He said it simply, without flourish, but the words reached somewhere she did not keep guarded enough. You also wrote that no staff member can be dismissed for reporting a textile irregularity. That seemed necessary. It is. She read the salary line again and tried not to react. The number was enough to fix the leak in her apartment ceiling, pay the old hospital bill, and send money to her aunt without counting grocery coins. This is too much, she said. No. You do not know what I was paid before. I know what my life is worth. Nora looked down because the sentence was too direct. Matteo placed a small box on the table. She stiffened. If that is jewelry, take it back. He almost smiled. It is not jewelry. If it is a bonus wrapped like jewelry, also take it back. Open it. Please. The word did more damage than a command. Inside lay a pair of white laundry gloves, reinforced at the fingertips and stitched at the wrist with a thin black line. Beside them was a steel key on a plain ring. The gloves are practical, he said. The key is to the textile evidence cabinet. No one else has one. Nora touched the gloves with 2 fingers. They were beautiful in the severe way useful things could be beautiful. Thank you, she said. You are welcome. The laundry room had cooled now that most machines were off. Without steam, Matteo looked tired. Not weak. Never that. But human in a way the upstairs rooms did not permit him to be. Nora took the repaired jacket from his arm. This cuff is pulling. Is it? You know it is. I wondered if you would notice. Do you test everyone? Less often than people think. More often than I should. She set the jacket on the table, trimmed one loose black thread, and reinforced the cuff with small, precise stitches. It was late, and she could have told him to send it through protocol in the morning. Instead she repaired it because he stood quietly in her room, because he had listened in his, and because power that could stand still without demanding performance was rare enough to examine. Why did you work hospital laundry? He asked. My mother did before she got sick. I took her shift after she couldn't stand that long. Is she alive? Nora's needle paused. No. Matteo lowered his eyes. I am sorry. Thank you. He did not fill the silence with questions, and for that she liked him more than was safe. She finished the cuff and held out the jacket. Try it. He slipped it on. This time, when the collar sat unevenly near his throat, he did not fix it himself. He looked at her, and the request was wordless but not assumed. Nora stepped closer. May I? Yes. She adjusted the collar with both gloved hands. Her fingers brushed the place below his throat where the old scar began. Matteo's breath changed just slightly, but he did not withdraw. This one is clean, Mr. Varric. His eyes held hers. Matteo. Names were dangerous. First names especially. They could be handles people used to pull you closer than you meant to go. This one is clean, Matteo, she said. Something in his face loosened, not enough for anyone upstairs to see, but enough for her. Then I can breathe, he said. Nora dropped her hands before she forgot why she should. Do not make poetry out of laundry inspections. I would not dare. You absolutely would. Perhaps. Caro, still pinned by Luca, laughed bitterly. She thinks she is special now. They all do at first. Nora looked at him, and for once the old insult found no bruise. No, she said. I think I am competent. Men like you confuse the two because you never expect either from women you underpay. Matteo's eyes flashed with something fierce enough to warm the whole service hall. Caro had no answer. By dawn, the Varric mansion smelled of coffee, rain, and stripped cedar. The poisoned suit, the false ties, the cuff thread, and Nora's first stained glove sat in the evidence cabinet under her lock. Rinaldi was gone from the house. Mrs. Vale had named the cousin who paid Caro, then asked for a lawyer. The house was not clean yet, but the first hard stain had lifted. Nora sat on the laundry room stool with both feet aching and the new white gloves folded beside her. Matteo entered with 2 mugs of coffee, both black and too hot. You noticed how I take it? She asked. I told you. I see you. Nora looked into the coffee because looking at him would have revealed too much. Careful, she said. That sounds like a promise. It is. Your protocol goes into effect today, he said. Your office will be beside the laundry room unless you want one upstairs. Beside the laundry room. I thought so. Do not sound pleased with yourself. I am pleased with you. Her fingers tightened around the mug. He did not rush to fill the silence. That was becoming one of the more dangerous things about him. He could wait, and he could let her decide where a moment went. I was invisible yesterday, she said. No. She looked up sharply. Matteo's face was serious. You were unseen, he said. That is not the same thing. Nora had no defense prepared for that distinction. People like me do not get many chances to be seen without being used. Then I will have to make a habit of proving the difference. Habits take time. I have time. The mansion above them was waking. It would take weeks to rebuild routes, replace locks, rewrite protocols, and teach powerful people that the laundry room had become a place where authority lived. But for the first time since Nora had taken the night job, the house did not feel as if it were pressing down on her. Matteo set his mug aside and looked at the sealed glove in the cabinet. I want that kept after evidence. Why? Because everyone else saw a glove. I saw the first thing that told me to stop. Nora's chest tightened. You mean the first thing you obeyed? Yes. There was no embarrassment in the admission, and no attempt to pull back the power he had given her by pretending he had never given it. It stays here, she said. Not in your bedroom. Not in some dramatic glass case. Here. Why? Because it is not a trophy. It is a reminder that work nobody respects can still save a life. Matteo nodded once. Then here. When Nora locked the cabinet, the steel key felt warm from her pocket. You should sleep, he said. So should you. I do not sleep much. That sounds like a future problem for another underpaid woman. Not underpaid. Not the point. He inclined his head. Then perhaps for the woman with written authority to tell me when I am being foolish. That authority is textile related. My collar is textile. Convenient. Very. She laughed before she could stop herself. Matteo's face changed as if he had been handed something fragile and did not yet know how to hold it. There, Nora said quickly. Now you have seen me laugh. Do not make a policy about it. No policy. Good. A preference, perhaps. Matteo. The almost smile remained. I will walk you out, he said. I know the way. I know. But this morning they need to see that I meant what I said. Nora's first instinct was to reject the protection because women like her learned early that protection could become a cage. But he had not said she belonged behind him, he had said people would have to account for him if they tried to harm her. Fine, she said. But I walk beside you, and I carry my own gloves. I would not dare. They left the laundry room together, and the staff in the service hall went silent as Matteo walked beside her with no guards between them. Nora lifted the new gloves slightly, and Grace from the linen staff smiled with her mouth half open. The front hall was bright with gray morning. Rain had softened to mist beyond the glass doors, and the black cars still waited outside. At the base of the stairs, Matteo stopped. Nora. She turned. Yes? He reached up, then stopped before touching his own collar. Would you check it before I go upstairs? He asked in front of the staff, in the open hall, where anyone could see the most feared man in the house request the laundry girl's judgment. Nora understood. He was making the new rule visible. She stepped closer and inspected his collar. Clean shirt. Clean seam. No residue. The repaired jacket sat correctly, the one side pulled because he had slept less than she had. She adjusted it with two gloved fingers. The hall watched. Matteo did not move. Clean, she said. Thank you. The words were ordinary. The room heard them as law. Nora stepped back. She should have gone down the staff corridor. Instead, Matteo opened the front door. Morning air entered the house, cool and wet and free of cedar. Your shift is over, he said. Use the front. Every servant in the hall heard that too. Nora looked at the open door, then at him. One day of surviving poison and you think you can reorganize entrances? Yes. Arrogant. Alive. She could not argue with that. Nora walked through the front door of the Varric mansion with aching feet, a steel key in her pocket, and white gloves folded against her heart. For the first time in her life, a powerful man's attention did not feel like a hand closing around her, it felt like a door held open while she chose where to step. The glove would stay in the cabinet. The black suit would stay sealed. The Route 17 tags would become evidence. And by nightfall, every person in the Varric house would know the story. The laundry girl had found poison in the Mafia Boss's suit and ordered him to take it off. Some would tell it like gossip, some would tell it like scandal, and Matteo, Nora suspected, would tell it like truth. But Nora knew the better version. A woman who had spent years cleaning other people's secrets finally found one before it could kill a man. She spoke. He listened. The room changed. And from that day forward, no one in the Varric house ever laughed at a white laundry glove again.